Just a moment here to talk about leaf blowers. I'm one of those guys who would really rather blow leaves than rake them. So here's what little I know. Moved out here about 1986, I think it was. Moved into an oak and hickory forest. And I quickly learned that come fall time, them pretty trees, they'll put you about ankle deep in leaves before you know it. So I sucked it up, went over to Sears and picked me up Craftsman. It weighs about 9 pounds, about a 1 horsepower, 32 cc it says on it. It pumped out 360 cubic foot per minute. Now, as I compare these, you have to remember that sometimes the manufacturers don't tell you whether that is the speed of the head with the nozzle, or the volume of the head, the speed of the blow with the nozzle or without the nozzle. So I'm just going with their numbers. Where I could find that specified, I always went with nozzle speed for the nozzle I'm using. But this one here was listed at 360 cubic foot a minute and 170 miles an hour for the blowing velocity. Noisy, 80 decibels, okay? The loudest gas-operated blower I've ever owned. And I was pretty content with it for about 10 years. Worked pretty well, and then I realized that it just wasn't moving as many leaves as I wanted. So I really wanted a little bit bigger blower, but I didn't have a bunch of money, so I couldn't buy a backpack at that time, and everything I heard about backpacks at that time was that they broke your back when you used them. So I got to shopping around and I came up with a Stihl blower. This one right here is a BG85. I don't know that they still make this. If they do, it's going to be an 85C or an 85D or whatever. But at any rate, this one here was just a little bit quieter. Instead of 80 decibels, it was 70. Okay. Blowing speed went up from 360 to 460. I'm sorry, the blowing volume went from 360 to 460. The velocity went from 170 to 183. And I went from 1 horsepower to 1.1 horsepower. Both of these have been gas oil mix operated. And I went down from 9 pounds to 8.8. Okay? Pretty good blower. I made do with it until last year. But between that, my wife got to thinking that if she had her a nice lightweight little blower inside, she could blow out the garage. And I wouldn't have to get that stinky gas one up there and gas out the house. So, went over and I picked up a really inexpensive Toro Power Sweep. Okay? It runs on 120 volt alternating current. This thing right here was quieter. It's 63.5 versus the 70 of the Stihl. Cubic foot per minute was much less. It went down from 460 to 155. The air velocity went down from 183 to 160. And as I said, it operated on 120 volt AC, but the weight was cut in half. It went from 8.8 to 4.7 pounds. And she got along with it pretty good. Okay? But what she told me was that she'd seen on the internet that there was a battery-operated blower. So, I sucked it up, and I bought her a little 20-volt DC. Okay? It's a DeWalt, and it's a DCE 100. Comparing this to the Toro that I just showed you, the noise volume went from 63.5 to 96 decibels. The loudest blower that I ever bought. Okay, and it pumps out a 100 cubic foot per minute versus the 155 on the Toro, and airspeed went from 160 miles an hour to 130. Both of these, I think, are measured at the nozzle. Okay, so that is a good direct comparison. Okay, but the nice thing about it was it went from 4.7 pounds down to 2.5. But she was pretty happy with that, especially after we bought the 6 amp hour batteries, because I got to tell you, if you're using a 1 hour battery, you're going to get about maybe 10 minutes worth of use. Okay, which was enough for her to blow out the garage. However, she had a habit of not putting them batteries into the charger, and every time she picked it up, she'd turn it on and it would start surging. On this type of engine, I don't know what there is about it, but it's the only one I've got, only cordless tool that I've got, that once the battery runs dead, the engine surges. It goes whoosh, whoosh. So at any rate, she got along pretty good with that. In fact, she still uses this. Okay, she's pretty happy with it. After she uses it, I always go check the battery and find out how much there is left in it. That one there's still got 2 bars. It'll probably do her for one more blowing before I need to charge it. And then I started deciding on my gas blower that I needed to replace this because it just wears your arm out trying to carry it. So I got to thinking, the lesser of the two evils is that my shoulders get tarred, rather than my arm having to have my elbow here in a ice pack all evening. So I bought the Stihl backpack blower. This is a BR 450C, and I showed this in a video the other day. Okay, comparing it to the other. Let me compare it to the other Stihl handheld. Okay, the noise level. Let me find it here on the list. Noise level went from 70 decibels up to 77, but the amount of air that it blows is a third more. It went from 460 to 642 cubic feet a minute. The velocity is about the same, but when you have that much more air pushing at that velocity, it can do more work. It went from a 1.1 horsepower to a 3.9 horsepower, but the weight went from 8.8 pounds to 25.4. Now, mind you, the suspension system is entirely different. Instead of being suspended from the end of your arm, it's suspended from your back with the weight distributed across your shoulders. Like several features about this, and I'll show you a modification that I did to make it work better, and just exactly how this works. It does have a telescoping tube. The Easy Start 2, I think they call it. I'll go over that in just a moment. But at any rate, that wasn't the end. The insanity continues. Here in the shop, I often need to be able to get to blow out this area, the pads at each of the doors. So what I did is I bought this DeWalt 20 volt here. Has a special little nozzle on it that really does make a big difference when you're blowing. But it uses a 20 volt battery, and came with a 5 amp hour battery, which is about what it needs. Now if I compare this to the other electrics, okay, and I'll use the little DeWalt here as a comparison, okay. Okay. This one here's 96 decibels. Okay. This one here is 66. Huge difference. Okay. This is 100 cubic foot per minute. This is 450. This is 135 miles an hour. This is 125. But which one of those streams do you think is going to move the most debris? And having this on here, it actually ends up being pretty easy to aim it. It disperses it, but it doesn't spread it that wide. Okay? And both of them are 20 volt DC. Okay? And the weight is not that much difference. This is 2.5 pounds. This is twice as much, but this is 2.5 pounds. This is twice as much. This is tool only, because the more battery you put on it, the heavier it gets. Okay, this is 2.5 pounds. This is 5.4. So I've been through this whole thing, and I guess I'm in it to win it. But I have two right now that I think I'm going to get rid of. This one here, we don't use it anymore, and it still runs, it's still good. And this one right here needs carburetor kit. That's why I retired it. And it just so happens that the carburetors are still available online. I'm going to ask a few folks if they want it. If not, I'll take it to the small engine repair guy and let him fix it up and sell it to make him a little Christmas money. So I'm going to keep these two. And this one right here, I keep out in the barn. It is great for blowing leaves out of the barn. The barn has an open front on it. Okay? And, of course, I'm going to keep the backpack. That's my journey so far. I wonder, has your journey been as checkered as that? Just wonder. I've been pretty happy with this blower. It works rather well. There's one small issue I have with it that I'll discuss in just a little bit, but to go through how it operates, it's pretty simple. You have the primer bulb here, and the choke system is their easy start. Okay, so you push it in and turn it to full choke. There's a half choke setting that you use if the warm start doesn't work, and then of course it's open. It has an electric start right here that the dealer said that should start it, and I've tried it a couple times when it's cold, but I haven't used this thing in 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to follow his advice, and instead of possibly running the battery down, trying to give it a cold start, I'm going to go ahead and use the pull handle to start it. Okay. Okay. Started. I'm going to let it warm up just a little bit. And then I'm going to shut it off. Okay. And I'll set you up here and I'll show you what it is with this thing that bothers me. Okay, so this is made with some easy adjust straps. You just pull on these and they tension. Okay, that's about right there. And it seems to, on the outside it looks like it works pretty good, but it must be made for someone with wider shoulders than mine, because as you use this strap here, you're moving back and forth like this a lot, and up and down. When you do that, this strap tends to work off your shoulder. So what I did is I took a piece of Velcro strapping and set it up so that I can strap these together and they don't work off of my shoulders. This end right here is basically pop riveted with a washer through the webbing, and this side right here just wraps around the other strap, and it works well. I don't have that problem now. This doesn't bother me any, makes it feel more secure, and I find that it doesn't rub up and down on my back as much as it does when I don't have this strap. If you look at the reviews on this online, you'll find that the one complaint that people have about this backpack blower is that they didn't come up with a better harness system than what they have. But that's the way I dealt with it. So aside from that, I said I really like it. Let's take a look at how it works. Okay? Should be able just to engage the trigger and start it. Huh? Don't have to take it off. Has a kill switch. fingertips. Nice thing about it is you can shut it off to talk to someone. You can go ahead and grab a rake and pull something out that's stuck, or whatever. Stop, take a drink, and you can shut it off. And then when you're ready to go, like that. I really like it. I'll put up some information on just what the specs are on this. But I have to tell you, I'm really pleased with this. Now, let's get out there and blow some leaves. After looking at all this, I gotta wonder, would you consider me to be a collector? A hoarder? Or just a blowhard? I suppose you get to decide.